In this episode, you'll see what life was like crawling through the tunnels in Cu Chi, Vietnam, and get a taste of how incredibly narrow it was. But hello and welcome to part 8 of my Vietnam and Cambodia adventure. If you've missed any of the previous episodes, and I put all the links in the description box below, or there's a card floating above me right now. Now this is part 2 of my Cu Chi tunnel adventure. I got lots of great comments in my last video, so thank you so much for that. Hopefully you'll like this one as well and you'll learn a thing or two. Anyway, right, let's start part 2. While walking amongst the Cu Chi area, you'll come across the wreckage of an American M41 tank, which looks a bit worse for wear now, but it's been here since the war. It was destroyed by a relay mine in 1970, and to see it up close and even clamber over it just makes you think what kind of destruction this thing caused, or even what life was like in there. To overcome major disadvantages in their caliber of weaponry and technology, the Viet Cong, or the Vietnamese, smartly collected waste materials and supplies left by the Americans. Detonated bombs were gathered for metal repurposing, the shrapnel was sold, and earnings were used to supply food to the tunnel workers. Detonators themselves were repaired and reused in combat. So really, if you think about it, the Viet Cong ingeniously fought the American army with their own weapons. There was a chance to fire some real life guns, from rifles to machine guns, that I would have absolutely loved to have tried. However, it did seem pretty pricey. I mean, I've heard guns before and shot them, but wow, I've never heard anything this loud before. Wow. My ears, they're really hurting. You had to buy at least 10 bullets, which worked out around about £20, and then after that every bullet was £2. As much as I'd love to fire a gun, especially like an AK-47 or a huge M30 machine gun, but I don't think I could justify the price. Especially after a second or two of shooting and that's it, your time's over and done with. I'm sure you can go elsewhere where it's a lot more cheaper. I can't seem to remember how much it was in America when I fired pistols. Yeah, I'll have to look into that. The tunnels were built by shovels, hoes, crowbars, very simple and cheap tools. And they built miles upon miles of the things, 155 miles to be exact, so no expensive diggers here to get the job done. Just manual labour and digging, which only took around 25 years. Yeah, not that long really. Anyway, and then we ended up going into the actual tunnels ourselves.
Have you seen it? Stop hour! Rush hour!
I can't even see you.
Have you not?
Nah. Wow, it is tiny in here.
Yeah, really small. Actually, to be fair, I think it's quite comfortable for me, but I think it's because I'm small.
Oh, we're still going down. Yeah.
Yes. Remember they did multiple layers.
Not for too far.
We're going again, apparently.
Yeah.
I should get my breath back.
You come out? Now turn on camera, my friend. Turn on. Guard. One way. And look at me. Let's very romantic. The next one, stop in front of the light. Yeah. Flash camera to me, my.
But I totally recommend it if you haven't tried it before. Just to imagine what life would have been like down there. It just gives you just a taste of of what it was like, really. And it's crazy to think that the tunnels that I went through, they have actually widened them to allow tourists to get through, but back in the day they were a lot more smaller and narrower. No idea how the Vietnamese did it. They must have been tiny then. So glad I finally done the cuchitunnels. I mean, it was small. I don't think I could be down there several hours of the day or days and days on end. Well, the Vietnamese are quite small, aren't they? But for a tall person, it's not nice, especially having a massive rucksack on my bag as well. She was fine, she's small. And these tunnels were dug from individual homes from village to village. So whenever attacks or bombings took place, it made it very easy to escape. America was widely known for using chemical warfare, and they napalmed the hell out of Vietnam, using around 20 million gallons of the stuff. No, not thousands, millions. However, surprisingly, the Vietnamese remained safe and sound in their tunnels. Unable to win the battle with chemicals, the US Army began sending men down into the tunnels. They called these men tunnel rats, who were often involved in underground firefights. They sustained appallingly high casual rates, mainly because they didn't know the complex tunnel system. It was so vast and misleading, with tunnels built purposely going into dead ends to confuse them, which would end them up getting lost. Or the tunnels were so incredibly tiny that they get stuck because of them having a bigger frame of body compared to the Vietnamese. Or their machine guns and rifles would get stuck when going around the bends, so they just had to leave their guns behind. To combat this, tunnel rats would only be armed with 3 essential things: a flashlight, a knife, and a pistol. It's not that much, really. Because in the tunnels, you couldn't even turn around to evade a fight because you were stuck in the direction you were facing. Then add on top of this the booby traps I mentioned in my previous video. The Vietnamese laid tons of these all over the place, literally all over the tunnels. It was a living nightmare down there. Sometimes the Americans sent German shepherd dogs into the tunnels to try and locate them, which I touched upon in my previous video. However, this was fatal, as the dogs were unable to spot booby traps or even smell the Vietnamese as they washed themselves in American soap. So many dogs were killed or injured that their horrified handlers refused to send them into the tunnels, and rightly so as well. I also learned that because they built the tunnels all over the place, sometimes they would be right near the Americans. So they could shoot at the, I don't know what type of gun that is that's got 2 triggers. So they could shoot at them that would make the shots appear as they were coming from the jungle. So the Americans would shoot frantically in all directions, which would kill some of their own soldiers, as they were so confused on where the hell the shots are coming from. It must have been traumatizing. Now, the Vietnamese lived and worked in these tunnels. There were bedrooms, weapon rooms, hospitals, and even kitchens. And with kitchens comes smoke. So small ventilation channels were built and designed to disperse cooking smoke and burning firewood. They strategically hid them at the base of trees, within thick grasses, even in termite nests, making the holes difficult to detect as well as the smoke. But when you look around the environment here, I thought there'd be a lot more open space for where all the fighting took place and just loads of fields, but really it's literally a jungle. Trees upon trees. It must have made it very hard to see, especially at night time. Or perhaps it did look different then, but now it's just overgrown and just thriving with greenery. So my initial thoughts of the cuchitunnels, yeah, really good, just as I expected inside, and really narrow, and I do get a bit claustrophobic, and I did think to myself at some point, like, I'm gonna go back. I thought, no, it's fine, like there's no worry, nothing's gonna happen. Loved it, it's really good. Highly recommend it if you want to learn more about the war and how they set up traps, how they lived and looked after themselves and prevented the enemy, the Americans, from finding out about the tunnels and their little bases and operations. Yeah, really fascinating. If there's one piece of advice I'd say if you plan on visiting the cuchitunnels, I'd probably say go there alone or go with friends. Just don't go there with a tour like I did, because you won't be able to go at your own pace and see and do the things that you want to do in your own time, because you're with a tour, time is of the essence, they need to hurry you on to the next section, they just need to hurry you up, really. And means you won't be able to see everything. We must have seen a small portion of the place, when in reality there is so much to see and do there. So yeah, I'm a bit annoyed by that. It looks like I just have to go again one day. But nonetheless, I really enjoyed my time there. I learned a lot and I saw so many things. I feel like I want to go back to school and history lesson and just know all the answers to the questions on the Vietnam War. But hopefully you've learned a lot yourselves over these past 2 videos. But in my next video, I'll be heading to the War Remnants Museum, where I'll be learning even more about the war. Well, specifically a different side to the war where it doesn't really get talked about that much. It focuses more on the war crimes that the French and the Americans committed. It's very fascinating stuff. But in the meantime, thanks all for watching, guys. Please don't forget to like and share the video, and I'll look forward to all of you coming back in part 9. Okay guys, bye bye.